Hi there. The reason for this video is to give a little extra guidance to individuals who may be unsure exactly what they need to talk to for the research article presentations talking about the evidence. Um, so I have here a filled out outline and a sample article, and we're just going to go through it, and I'll show you how we put the different things in here that we needed to complete the outline. Now remember, the outline's not graded. The outline is there for you to be able to review what you need to say to the group when you talk during your presentation. So this is a piece that you're going to upload into the Dropbox for us to use while we grade this in the article. But the piece that gets the grade is the actual conversation, not the outline and what it looks like. And it doesn't matter what color the font is. Don't get off in that, okay? So when you look at your research study, the first thing on your outline is the goals or purpose of the research study. A lot of research articles have it in the abstract in the end. This particular research study, it just has a short abstract that gives a little brief story about what the research is about. So if you scroll on down a little bit further, you can find usually before the methods section start, the purpose of the study. There might be an individual section like this one that says purpose, or it might be at the end of the background, but still it'll say purpose, and then it'll tell you what the purpose is of their research. So this one was to investigate the effect of a campus therapy dog, and then to identify any challenges associated with animal-assisted therapy. And so the next piece on here is summary of major themes of the relevant supporting literature cited in the research article. This is the background section of your article. What it is, it's a history, it's the background of different research studies that have occurred before the one that the articles actually reporting results on. So it's a background that says what type of research has been done and why there might be need to do additional research in the area to add to our body of knowledge, because we're all about evidence-based practice, right? So in this background, it starts off talking about college students and their anxiety levels and depression, and how college students have a higher degree or report that anxiety affects their performance. And then another research study or two says that nursing students have even more stress and anxiety while they're in school, maybe because of clinical or their perceptions of the high stakes testing and those kind of things. And then your background talks about how animal assisted therapy could help, how it's not really expensive, how it gives you feel good hormones and makes you feel emotionally well and decreases stress. And so there's your background of research in anxiety and animal assisted therapy to improve it. So that's your background, previous studies. Your next piece, and this one's background goes on a while. And in this article, she talks about a theoretical framework, the Kolkaba's comfort theory. A lot of research studies have a theoretical framework that guides the methods used in their research study. This particular study did have a research theory guiding the research. Not all research studies cite what that theory might be or even use it, depending on the quality of the research study. So there's not a piece about your theoretical framework on here that that you need to include in your outline. But when you go through and you read it, check it out, see what you think. Everything we do is based on theory. So the next piece on your article, after you go all through the background and everything, is why it's important to conduct the current theory research that the article is reporting on, right? And that's usually just right before at the end of your description, your background here. Much of the evidence here, they haven't done any experimental design. It's always short-term interactions with the dog, those kind of things. And so what this study was trying to do is add to our body of knowledge is by doing an experimental design, having a control group and an experimental group that that goes over a period of time. So the next piece, let's see here, is your research design, and this research done was experimental. It's quantitative, experimental, pre-test, post-test, which basically means that there's a control group and an experimental group, and the experimental group has some kind of intervention, and they test them before the intervention and after the intervention to see if there's a difference. In this case, it was animal assisted therapy that they used. So you get past the research design, and you know it's quantitative, you're going to have numbers and those kind of things. And the next thing on your outline is who your study subjects are. And look at your study subjects and the research article that you pick, because who's included as study subjects in your and the research study has a direct relation to if the results can be used for or inferred to another group. So you know if it's all RNs on a med surg unit, then really can't apply it to RNs in a critical care unit, those kind of things. So your sample is pretty important. Then they talk about on here, your next piece on your outline is how they collected their data. So this one here, when they talk about collecting the data, oh, sorry, went too far, is under the procedures section here. And that's most research studies identify procedures as a piece under the method section. This one says that they recruited during the first week of the semester level 2 students, right? And then they had them, the people who volunteered to participate did informed consent, were the research subjects, and then we divided them to a control group and an experimental group. And the experimental group was the one that got to interact with the therapy dog. So here's your piece, your beginning of it. It comes in and asks you about how they what measurement instrument they use for data collection. This particular study used the hospital anxiety and depression scale. It's called the SADS. And that's the survey they completed at the beginning and end of the semester. So here they conducted it over 2 16-week periods, fall and spring. It was level 2 assignment. Students, they were randomly assigned. The control group didn't have animal-assisted therapy. The experimental group did. The dog came to campus 2 days a week and was in various places, the classroom, the foyers, the NRC, the tutoring center, those kind of things. And the activities that the individuals with the experimental did with the dog included just talking to him, petting, playing with him, or feeding him treats. And so all of this is in the procedures here of how they went along about it. And then at the end of the semester, they did their second hats, remember, because they did that hospital anxiety and depression scale at the beginning of the semester and the end of the semester. Your next piece on your outline is your procedures used for data analysis. In this particular case, being a quantitative design, the statistical package, SPSS, that was what was used to do it. It was software, and you entered the data and you pushed a button and it told you if the findings were statistically significant. When you look at research findings, you know, they may say the research findings were different, but if they don't include statistical significance in that difference, then you couldn't apply it to another population or say that that research study could happen again. The same thing would happen again if they did it twice. So in this particular one, when they did the analysis in SPSS, they compared the before and after HADS, and in the first one on the depression scale, because the findings on the pre-test were already significantly different before the intervention, that depression wasn't something that the research could look at to see if the dog would improve it, because there was already two differences, you know, huge difference in the groups. And then the anxiety scale that they used that showed the second HAD showed a significant decrease in the control tank's anxiety. So there's your results section. So the author's conclusion, and you know, here you have your data analysis whole paragraph, and there'll be a section about results, and there may be tables, and there may be this and maybe that, but look for the look for the term statistical significance. Don't worry about different n and the p values and the mean and all those kind of things. Look to see what the overall interpretation of the real results were. And if you can't identify it right there in the results section, then look in the discussion section, because this discussion section I'll start off with what the findings were and then talk about them, right? So, the dogs, the therapy dog decreased anxiety. That was a pretty simple little study here. And so, what are your implications for nursing practice? Animal-assisted therapy could decrease student anxiety. And then the other thing that's important to look at when you look at these research studies is any potential bias that could affect results, right? Because some research studies, their method sections are not very rigorous. So the results, while they may say they're statistically significant, if the methods used to find the results, then those results wouldn't be applicable to another population or really have value in practice, right? So in this particular study, the primary investigator, I guess y'all know by now, it was me, nursing faculty, and I owned and handled the dogs. So that could create some bias. And then there was no action to prevent the people in the control group from interacting with the dog. I didn't, they weren't in two separate rooms. The dog was there. And if you were in the control group, you weren't supposed to interact with them. And then if you were in the experimental group, you could, because, especially on test days, right? So then another thing that was weak was that there was no specific animal-assisted therapy activities identified as beneficial. I mean, everybody did their own thing with the dog. They pet the dog, they played with the dog, fetch, or gave him a treat, or had him do a trick, or all those different things. So if we were to try to repeat this exact research, because we didn't identify the activities or the time range for the activities, like your dose of your intervention, like a med, your dose, right? Then you can't really repeat the exact same study and confirm the results in a second study. So there's your scoop. The easy piece of it. Remember, this isn't a paper. This is just an outline for you to use here, for you to know what to say while you're talking about your study when we talk in groups. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoy research.